Well, the city of Cincinnati is exploring privatizing downtown and neighborhood parking. That move could reportedly bring the city at least $40 million in much-needed upfront payments and generate hundreds of millions for the winning bidder over 30 years. City Manager Milton Mahoney announced the privatization proposal about a month ago. Now, he says he's just days away from introducing a 2013 city budget that currently includes a $34 million deficit. Privatizing the city's parking meters in many of its garages would help alleviate some of the deficit, according to Mahoney. Chicago did it, so did Indianapolis. Is Cincinnati next? Business Courier senior reporter Dan Monk wrote this story. He joins the Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer in our studio. Dan and Rob?
Brian, thanks. Dan, thanks for being here. So explain real quickly what privatization of parking means. I mean, it's sort of a tongue twister, but it could be very important for the city.
Well, a vendor or a concessionaire signs a lease to gain control of the assets, the parking garages and the parking meters, and then they take over management of that in exchange for a fee. So in most cases where this has been done, the city will get an upfront payment and some form of shared revenue after that.
And how much money are we talking about here?
Well, Chicago got $1.2 billion for its meters. Indianapolis got a $20 million upfront payment and then shared revenue, which is estimated at total $300 to $600 million over 50 years.
So how many meters are we talking about here? How many garage spaces that the city runs right now are we talking about?
Well, it's not all of the city's parking assets, but they're including about 2,800 spaces in off-street parking in the deal and about 6,000 metered spaces and more than 6 neighborhoods. It would be downtown, Hyde Park, over the Rhine, Oakley. Those are among the neighborhoods they're offering.
Now, not everybody thinks this is a wonderful idea.
Right.
It has been tried in other cities. What are some of the issues that people have with this, or some of the fears people have with this?
Well, Chicago was really the kind of the leader in this. In 2008 is when they started it, and there have been complaints in Chicago about aggressive enforcement. You know, they'll boot your car or tow your car, and they troll the city looking for, expired meters. And then there have also been problems, fights between the city and the vendor over how much revenue they're supposed to get. When the city shuts down a street for a parade, the vendor asks for additional revenue because they don't have access to that meter revenue. So there have been some problems in Chicago, and other cities have had similar problems, and I think that's what the critics are worried about.
So the city's going to try to make a decision this month, is that right?
Well, that's what the RFP says. When they put out the invitation for bids, they said they want to select a vendor by the end of the year, and that's because they're coping with this budget deficit, and they're trying to determine whether they can use some of that upfront money to cover the city budget deficit.
Right. Dan, thanks for being here.